The Kamchatka Peninsula is home to a significant number of the Amur, or Siberian tiger, which, according to experts, has proven to be the largest feline predator on planet Earth. These beasts can grow to weigh a crazy total of 800 pounds. At some point, they roamed all over northern and central Asia, and in recent times, they've also been spotted in northern China and Manchuria. However, while October 1923 was supposed to be the beginning of the cold Siberian winter in the far eastern regions, that wasn't the only thing that they had to welcome, as another terror came this winter, leaving the inhabitants of 3 villages in that region of Siberia not only subject to communism that came with the establishment of the Soviet Union, but also a new horror devil itself. These beasts came along with their razor-sharp claws and teeth ready to feast on whatever they could lay their eyes on. During these first sets of killings, no one was safe. If you were working outside, you were bound to be torn apart by the hungry beast, and the bodies of those killed were found in the snow, with missing limbs and excessive scratches. However, the safety of those who stayed in their houses was not guaranteed either, because quite a number of people were killed right inside their homes. From October 1923 until April of 1924, when the snow began to melt, it was body after body that started to appear. However, that was just the beginning. These were just the very first killings. But of course, that couldn't possibly be the end, even though that was the end of the first round of the winter season. And then there came the next 2 winter seasons, and for each the devil reared its ugly head again, and this time took its trophy of 30 kills in 2 seasons. After much looking, the killer tiger was discovered to be a male. Considering how extraordinarily large the 8-inch diameter paw prints that were left in the deep snow. And as for the hunters around who were quite familiar with the territory, they saw it to be one very clever and shifty creature. However, they were able to deduce that the creature was likely to have an injured right front leg, looking at how uneven the depth of the impressions and prints were, and the uneven gait as well. Now here was how that theory of the beast being injured was proven. It was always known that injured tigers always found it extremely hard to hunt their usual prey like deers, boars, and the likes, so they opted for the easier target, which, in this case, was humans. But here was the issue. During the months of May through August, since they were quite warm, the beast went back into hiding, which meant no more attacks. And so the population was lured into a false sense of security. This gave them the hope that it was gone for good, and they wouldn't have to bury their folks anymore or expose their little ones to such gruesome sights. However, they were quickly proven wrong, as the snow of the 1924 and the 1925 winter season started to roll in. Almost immediately they began recording deaths, even more than in the first winter. And worse this time, people began to disappear just as the tiger roamed the region. As it roamed, it randomly hit each of the 3 outlying villages, especially where all the farms were scattered. At one point, the roaming tiger imprinted upon a young villager it had attacked, taking in his scent and having a taste of his blood. After the tiger stalked the young villager, and even worse for everyone who came in contact with the young man, 1 extra person was put in as much danger as the young man. And then, considering the vast experience of the heavily forested area with a good number of people living in close proximity to each other with just several miles separating them, the area was simply seen as a natural hunting ground. As the killings didn't seem to be coming to an end and more people were being killed, the villagers decided to send out search parties, from basic hunters to even a Red Army company, the Army and the Air Force of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic at the time, all with the aim to locate and, if possible, kill the terror which was the man-eating beast that had befallen the region. The Red Army went as far as using an aircraft so that they'll be able to spot the tiger. And at the end of the day, the tiger was killed. However, later on it was discovered by the hunters that the tiger killed wasn't the man-eating beast they were after, due to how small the paws were. Meanwhile, the assumption wasn't accepted by the local communist officials, and yet again the villagers took up that false sense of security and complacency. They were all convinced that the tiger had been, for a fact, killed and that safety had returned to the region. Well, that was what they wanted to believe. Because the truth remained that the tiger was still out there, and they were utterly wrong, because in no time, by the winter of 1925, the subsequent killing started all over again, and it went on until the beginning of the spring of 1926. To prove them wrong one more time, the kills were at the beginning of the spring in that year, as the number of fatalities had gone up to at least 34 people in total. However, that wasn't all, because after more investigation, it was discovered that another 24 people were nowhere to be found, without a trace. Some people believe that this was simply revenge for the fact that they, the villagers, were hunting it, because somehow, just as mysteriously as these killings had begun, they simply stopped, and the rogue tiger never returned, making the 1925-26 killings its very last. And so the question remained, did the tiger die, or did it simply find greener pastures and move on? Maybe to move on to a new killing ground that seemed safer than the Siberian region due to the bounty on its head? Probably the last kill was just revenge for the village coming after it. Whatever the answer may be, it's still quite hard to figure out why and how exactly the creature disappeared. Because, on common grounds, no predator would typically just leave an environment so target-rich with heavily forested mountains, not to mention freshwater lakes and rivers. Nothing about this region was lacking. In fact, it was pretty safe to say that it was the perfect location for the tiger to be in. And so, as times and seasons changed and decades passed, these stories went from just being historical narrative, or a cautionary tale, or whatever you would like to call it, to being one of constant, embedded folklore. And even in present times, in small villages around this region, mothers often tell this story to the children, as they have been passed down through various generations. They go on to fill their children with the idea that if they're not good, the devil that roamed that region would come after them. And so, they had no choice but to be on their best behavior, as none would like to take on the odds of meddling with the Siberian boogeyman.